Hello, and welcome to Reis das Artes, Unimaginable Conversations. I'm Almir Reis, visual artist, creator, and your host on this extraordinary journey through the minds that transformed art forever. This is not just an interview program. This is a meeting across time, a place where imagination allows us to sit face to face with the greatest artists in history to explore not only their masterpieces, but the emotions, obsessions, silences, and visions behind them. Because art is never simply what hangs on a wall. Art is courage. Art is solitude. Art is rebellion. Art is the soul translated into form. And today, we enter the vast and poetic world of an artist who turned flowers into monumental mysteries, deserts into spiritual landscapes, and silence into one of the most powerful visual languages of the modern era. A woman whose vision was fearless, intimate, and unmistakably her own. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to an unimaginable conversation with Georgia O'Keeffe.
Almir, thank you. Truly. What an extraordinary invitation this is, to be part of Reis das Arte. Unimaginable Conversations feels both surreal and deeply meaningful. I must confess, I have been following your conversations quietly, with great curiosity, watching remarkable artists from different eras and worlds being invited into this thoughtful space you have created, and I find it rather beautiful. This idea that art can transcend time, that voices never truly disappear if the work remains alive. To now find myself among such a distinguished and selective circle of artists is an honor I accept with genuine gratitude. Your program does something rare. It does not simply discuss art. It listens to it, and that is something I deeply admire. So thank you, Almir, for welcoming me into this extraordinary gathering. I am delighted to be here, and very much looking forward to our conversation.
Georgia, thank you for those beautiful words. It's truly a pleasure to have you here. Let's begin at the beginning. Tell us a little about your story. Where were you born? What was your early life like? And how did art first find its way into your life? When did you realize this was more than a passion, that it was your calling?
Of course. I was born on November 15, 1887 in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, on a farm surrounded by open land, sky, and nature. Perhaps that is where my love for space and form first began. Art entered my life very early. As a child, I was always drawing, always observing. But there came a moment when I understood that art was not simply something I enjoyed. It was the language through which I understood the world. I studied formally, of course, but I eventually realized that true creation only began when I stopped trying to paint like others and started seeing with my own eyes.
Georgia, let me ask you something. In a world that was so overwhelmingly dominated by men, especially in painting, what did that feel like for you? Did you ever feel you had to fight harder to be taken seriously, or were you always the kind of person who simply walked in and said, "I belong here too"?
Almir, that's a very honest question. And the truth is, I didn't spend much time thinking about whether I was a woman in a man's world. I was far too busy trying to become myself. Of course, the art world could be dismissive, patronizing. Sometimes they preferred to talk about me rather than actually look at my work. But I learned early that if you wait for permission, you may wait forever. So no, I didn't walk in trying to fight the men. I walked in trying to protect my own voice. And I believe that made all the difference. There were certainly moments of frustration, but I never wanted to paint as a woman artist. I simply wanted to paint as Georgia O'Keeffe.
Georgia, many of your male contemporaries have seen their works sell for extraordinary sums at auction, often reaching tens of millions of dollars. Your own work has also achieved remarkable recognition in the art market. For instance, Jimson Weed, White Flower #1, which sold in 2014 for approximately $44.4 million. Becoming the most expensive work by a female artist sold at auction at the time. How do you feel about this relationship between artistic legacy, gender, and market value? Do you see these figures as a meaningful measure of artistic importance, or merely as a reflection of the art market's shifting values?
I have never believed that the true value of art could be measured in money. Elmir. Money belongs to the marketplace. Art belongs to the soul, to vision, to the courage of seeing the world differently and insisting on that vision. If men of my time were valued more highly, that says perhaps more about the structures of the world than about the work itself. Of course, I would not pretend there is no satisfaction in seeing one's work recognized, especially when women artists were so often overlooked, dismissed, or spoken of as curiosities rather than serious creators. If one of my paintings helped shift that perception, then I find that meaningful. But a painting's worth is not determined by the hammer at an auction house. Its worth lies in whether it continues to make someone stop, breathe, look again, and feel something they had no words for before. If the market has finally learned to look at women's work with greater seriousness, then that is encouraging, but long overdue.
Georgia, you built your career in a time when women artists were often not taken as seriously as men. If you had been born in today's world, where women generally have greater visibility and opportunity in the arts, do you believe your journey would have been different? Would your work have been understood or valued differently? And what do you make of contemporary art in a world so full of images, speed, and constant self-expression?
Perhaps some things would have been easier, perhaps not. I never spent much time thinking about whether the world was fair. I worked. Being a woman was simply one fact among many. People often insisted on making more of it than I did. If I were beginning today, perhaps there would be fewer obstacles of a certain kind. But difficulty is not always a bad teacher. It forces clarity. As for whether my work would be valued differently, who can say? Value is a curious thing. It changes with fashion, with people, with time. The work itself is what matters. Art today seems very noisy to me. So many images, so much urgency to explain oneself. I have always believed that if you can truly see something, really see it, and paint it honestly, that is enough. The world changes. Seeing does not.
If you had to choose, is there one painting among your works that feels especially close to you, a piece that in some way represents you most deeply? And between your iconic flowers and the vast landscapes you painted, did one subject bring you greater satisfaction or feel more intimately connected to your way of seeing the world?
I have never thought much in terms of favorites. A painting belongs to the time in which it was made, to what I was seeing, feeling, or trying to understand then. People speak often of the flowers, perhaps because they are what became most familiar to them. But I did not paint flowers because they were delicate or decorative. I painted them because people rarely stop to really look at them. The landscapes of New Mexico were different. They gave me space, literal and emotional space. The bones, the desert, the sky, the hills. They felt honest to me, severe, clear, without unnecessary decoration. If I felt especially close to anything, perhaps it was the desert. Not because it was beautiful in any conventional sense, but because it felt endless and true. A flower asks you to look closely. A landscape asks you to breathe. I needed both.
Georgia, before we say goodbye, I'd like to ask you about the art of our time. Today, artists create not only with paint, canvas, and traditional materials, but also with digital tools, prints, photography, and even artificial intelligence. Some would say technology has expanded artistic possibilities. Others fear it may distance art from the human hand and direct experience. Before I ask for your thoughts, our production team has selected a number of your own works for our viewers to revisit. A moment to reflect on your extraordinary legacy. And after we've taken that journey through your art, I'd love to hear your perspective on this new artistic landscape. What do you make of the art being created today? And before we close, would you leave a final message for our viewers and followers?
Wow, Almir. Seeing those works again is rather extraordinary. One does not often look backward for long. Those paintings belong to different moments of my life, different ways of seeing, different silences, different questions. And yet, I recognize them immediately. They still feel honest to me. That is perhaps the most one can hope for as an artist. The tools may change, but the essential question remains the same. Are you truly seeing or merely producing? Whether art is made with paint, photography, printmaking, or even something as unfamiliar to me as artificial intelligence, what matters is not the tool, but the eye, and the honesty behind it. It has been a genuine pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for this thoughtful conversation and for returning even briefly to the work I left behind. If I may leave you with one thought, it is this: learn to look more slowly. The world reveals itself to those who truly pay attention. And to everyone watching, if this conversation meant something to you, stay with the channel, share your thoughts, and continue supporting conversations about art. Thank you for your kindness, Almir. Goodbye.
Georgia, it has been an immense honor to have you here with us. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective, your sensitivity, and a glimpse into your extraordinary journey. This has truly been a very special conversation. And to all of you who stayed with us until the end, thank you so much for your company. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Please let me know in the comments what you thought about this episode. And most importantly, who you would love to see as our next guest. Your ideas help shape these conversations. And here's your invitation. Next Wednesday, we'll be back with a brand new guest. And this time, a very special surprise. Thank you again for being here with us. Until next time, goodbye.